We are in Yaakov. Please like the channel, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, ring the bell, and do everything else you have to do in order to bring it high in your ranking so that you'll never miss a class. Thank you. Okay, again, we are in Yaakov, Gemara Shabbos, 63a2 in the outscroll, and for everybody else, it's 63a, but you don't have it yet. So, Ika da Amri, we're talking, just a reminder, the Mishnah said that a person should not go out with a sword or a bow, and so on and so forth, and then the reason, or a shield, and the reason is because, the argument was, are they ornaments, are they ornamental, or are they something you're carrying, such as a weapon? If I'm carrying, that's no good. If it's not, if it's ornamental, then I can. It has to be something I would wear normally. By the way, it's also interesting that when we talk about wearing something, we were talking about wearing it to wherever you go. In other words, again, and if you look in the world of Gunsmoke, the world of Bonanza, they would always take their gun off at home. They wouldn't wear it around the house.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So, is it ornamental or it's protection at that point? You would say that that's ornamental. You would say that that's protection, sorry. Unlike the person who...
When they go out, you mean it's protection.
Right. Unlike the
Take it off when they get home.
Unlike the people who walk around with their ornamental stuff, like my watch and everything else, no matter where I am. So that's what it's on. Right, it's on. So interesting enough that if I'm a new person who loves my new sword, so I wear the sword wherever I go, including in my house. I walk around with it because it's ornamental. Okay, so it depends on what I'm doing. Well, how do I normally handle the stuff? Do I put it down, and therefore I'm signifying that it's a burden. I'm carrying it for whatever reason I have, or like your keys. Your keys you leave in your pocket. My telephone I leave in the pocket for the most part. Now it's carrying. I'm not saying telephones are carrying, but if I would have the chip that they put in there, the Bluetooth. So even that's carrying, but you're wearing it. You could argue I'm wearing it, as long as it's not connected to the internet or whatever it's connected to. So that you could argue I'm wearing it. It's a brand new thing. I didn't even realize I'm wearing it. That'd be a matter of wearing. Okay. Wearing a tie, wearing all these things. I'm wearing these things, even though there are nooses around your neck, literally.
What's the point of that distinction?
So the point would be, what am I allowed to wear on Shabbos? What is normally worn? And what is carried? Well, how do I define it? So again, when I'm going home, I would take off the Bluetooth. I don't want the Bluetooth. Maybe I wouldn't. Who knows? Yeah. I don't think I want to connect it to me at all times. I want to disconnect. So if I want to disconnect, I put it down. Again, the same thing with the telephone, by the way. What do you do when you want to disconnect? You just put it away from you.
To disconnect what?
From the world. If I want to disconnect from the world and I have a telephone, what do? I put it down. I don't have to hold it anymore. Turn it off, put it down. If I really want to shut off the world, I turn it off.
The distinction between wearing and carrying is that the first does not involve the use of the hands, and the second involves the use of the hands.
No. Absolutely not. It has nothing to do with using your hands. It has to do with, is it a burden? For instance, if I have a signet ring, which I would sign papers with, okay, I cannot use that on Shabbos. I cannot carry that on Shabbos.
Yeah, because you light the wax you need for the ring.
What?
You probably couldn't light a fire to heat the wax to stick the ring in it.
No, it's some relief. All you do is put in ink and like that.
Oh, there's no hot wax.
No, it's not hot.
We're talking about inking with it.
Right, so I have a ring that I would sign with it, whatever the case is going to be.
Stamp it by whatever.
A stamp, but that I would say I'm wearing that, or tefillin. You know, tefillin is for purpose. It's for prayers. So it's if it's any other day. So that would be considered muksa because there's no reason for it. So now it's a burden. So it goes, for instance, from muksa to a burden. I was saying all these different things that you have, it's not a matter of carrying it with my hands. It's a matter of carrying it with my. I'll give another example. Let's say I have I have a jacket on, and I have one raincoat on. but I need you to have a raincoat. So what do? I put a second raincoat on. That's not normal.
Yeah.
Nobody wears two raincoats. That second one becomes a burden.
In other words,
Even though I'm wearing it, it becomes a burden.
somebody might say in their mind, "I'll wear the second raincoat to give it to
Right, and so that's
Shlomi over here."
but that's usher.
Yeah,
That's
because
usher.
you're
You're
not-
carrying
you're
it.
carrying it
You're
for him.
carrying
You
it.
don't- you
right.
don't need it.
You're just trying to get out of it. You're just trying to get around it. So that would be a point of carrying versus wearing. So the only time you could get ornamental would be when you have people do this all the time, when they put the jacket over their shoulders, but not on. They don't use the sleeves. There's no purpose to that jacket. You're carrying the jacket in reality.
Would there be a distinction between carry and wearing if one had intent to use it? Would that form part of the distinction? If
What do you mean
one
by
had
use it?
Well, in other words, if it was purely ornamental, if you go out of the house wearing a sword because you're going to a place where military men wear their swords, you don't intend to use it
Correct.
beyond what you're doing with it.
Correct. That's yes.
Is intent to use part of that distinction between wearing and carrying? The intent to use it.
The intent. Well, yeah, yes. The answer would be yes. The intent to use it, but of course I could use it if I had to protect myself. I would take the sword out, but I didn't intend to do that. I intended to. It was part of the uniform. Okay. Well, so let's go on. So it says V'ika da'amri. So that was a whole argument. So Ika da'amri amru lo Rabbi Elazar. So there are those who say that the Braita reads as follows. The sages said to Rabbi Elazar, "Chimi acha tachshitan heinlo." As much as these weapons are ornaments for him, so we said that these things would be nullified in the days of the Mashiach. Yeah. So what are you going to do with that? Amar lehen after Mashiach and B'Taylor. So Rabbi Elazar said they won't be eliminated in the Messianic era. Period. Okay, Shmuel. And that's this opinion of Rabbi Elazar is consistent with the opinion of Shmuel, who said that the Messianic era. I think we did this. Okay, will not usher any changes into natural order, and so weapons will still be needed. Upaligid to Rabbi Yechia bar Abba, and disagrees with the opinion of Rabbi Yechia bar Abba, who holds that all the prophecies of clean nations shall not lift up sword against sword, refer to the Messianic era. Okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure we did that. So let's go on. So Armale. So now you are in all. Everybody should be with me. Right. So Armale Rav Kahana Lama Barei Rav Huna. You have an objection raised in the choice to choice of this verse. You have it, Sadik, right here. You go to the next column. Okay, right, not the next page. Right, next column, right here. This one. Okay. So it says Armale Rav Kahana Lama Barei Rav Huna. So Rav Kahana said Tamar the Rav Huna. Hi, b'divrei Torah Ketiv. This is written in the verse of the Torah, and is not to be taken literally as pertains to weapons. Is that you still have it or not? Or you still don't have it? Maybe you don't have it still. I thought you did have it. So Amalei. So Mar, the son of Rav Huna, said to Rav Kahana, "Ein mikra yosek midei pshuto." A verse never leaves its plain meaning. So even when he explains, even when a verse is expounded exegetically, its literal meaning is not completely discarded. Hence, Rabbi Elazar is justified in using literal meaning as a proof of this verse as a proof. So Rav Kahana says, "Amar Rav Kahana, Kad Havina Bar Tamnei Srei Shinin." Rav Kahana said, when I was 18 years of age, V'hagim Leilchulei Talmuda, I had learned the entire Talmud. Okay. V'lo haviyadana de'em mikra yosem de peshuta adhasha. But I did not know that a verse never departs from its plain meaning until now. He learned the whole Gemara, and he didn't get that rule. I don't know how he could have missed it. Personally, the whole Gemara does that, so I'm not sure how he could have missed it. But nonetheless, my Kamashalam, what is Rav Kahana teaching us? The ligmar inshe v'hada lizbar, that a person should first learn and afterwards reason. And he says one should first learn the Talmud from his teacher, even though he does not understand the rationale of every statement, and only afterwards should he probe for the reason. Rav Kahana himself exemplifies this principle, for he did not understand how the verse provided the basis of Rabbi Elazar's opinion, and did not know the reason given by our Gemara, namely that a verse never departs from its plain meaning, and yet he had known the entire Talmud since the age of 18. So here he had learned everything. It wasn't like we have now when you have art scrolls. They had to know it by Al-Peh, they had to know it by heart. So he had, and Talmud, in those, again, he doesn't know all the arguments because he's part of the arguments. He doesn't know the text that we have in front of us, but he knows how the arguments go, and he would know how to reason out. And yet, for some reason, they never taught him that the verse doesn't leave its simple meaning. By the way, what that means, let's put that into real context. Ayin tachat ayin, shein tachat shein, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Okay, we understand that not in the literal sense. We understand that if somebody knocks somebody else's eye, you have to pay the value of the eye. If somebody knocks out the value of the tooth, you have to pay the value of the tooth. It never was supposed to be, if I knock out your eye, you knock out, if Reuven knocks out Shimon's eye, Shimon knocks out Reuven's eye, that would be a stupid rule. So it's always been monetary. So if that's the case, how do you say that it doesn't go outside of the, it doesn't leave pshat, it doesn't leave the simple explanation, and that's how they connect it to different verses to prove what they're saying. But it's nonetheless, that would be an example of what it's really saying is, by the way, if you knock somebody's eye out, you really are obligated in God's eyes, and only in God's eyes, not in our court eyes, to knock his eye out. That's how negligent you were. You deserve that to be knocked out or taken out. But of course, we don't do that in this world, because God's told us how to read it. But it's nonetheless, that would be the matter. Also, you have Breish. What's it? I'm trying to think of any other. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. That means in the beginning, God created from nothing the heaven and the earth. There, you take that in a simple explanation. On 6 days of creation, simple explanation. That's what there were, 6 days explanation. No, 6 days. It doesn't mean each day was a millennia, was an era, was anything else. 6 days. Wait. I wanted to show something. That it just means that you had 6 days, and God created blank on one day, blank on the second, and so on and so forth. Now, it opens up the world of Midrash to say that it doesn't have to be one 24-hour day, because how can you have a 24-hour day if the sun is not yet in place? The only thing that makes it the days 24 hours is the revolution of the revolution?
Yeah,
rotation, thank you. Rotation of the earth, and the thing that makes the seasons is the revolution of the earth around the sun. That's all that happens. But if I don't have the sun in place, I can't see a sunrise and sunset because there's no sun. So therefore, there can't be 24 hours to that day.
What day was the sun created?
Fourth day. It was put into place on the fourth day. So now, if that's the case, so the first 4 days when it says, let there be light, what does that mean? You understand? So that's what I'm saying. All these things that lends itself, the pasuk is there, the verse is there, and then we have to take it literally. At the same time, we have to understand what's going on. So that opens the door, the Pandora's box, if you will, to say, that's talking about mixing religions and culture, okay? It opens it up to say, well, it could be era, we're talking, the era, E-A-R, era. Eras we're talking about. No, it's not one day as 24 hours days, but one era, which will last whatever amount of time there is. And that's what you have Gerald Schroeder,
right,
with his,
yeah.
whatever they called it, Big Bang, Genesis, whatever they called this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where you also have the Slifkin with evolution. The Torah lends itself for this as long as you're willing to understand that you have pshat, but you also have drash, and it opens up the door to these sort of things.
You mean the letter and the spirit?
No, the letter. In other words, exactly what it says. Translation. I understand. So I said, pshat is a simple explanation of what the verse says, and then the drash is there's something missing in this sentence. There's something missing. So it lends it. That's when the rabbis, again, via the old tradition, understood that this is where you have the opportunity to say what's going on here. So they look further into it. It would be the same as, by the way, science. where sunrise, sunset. Okay, we know the sunrise, we know the sunset, but why? We know a plane takes off, but why? Okay, let's assume that we didn't know how the plane flew. We missed that part of the science. But now we build pyramids. We don't know how the pyramids were built. We have to surmise how they were built.
I think we do, really.
No, we don't. We don't know how they were built. We say it's impossible that they could have done it at that time. Blah 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 blah. The whole mishigas. That's why they had Chariots of the Gods. That's where that whole book came from. Chariots of the Gods, because people are too stupid to understand that the ancients had more wisdom than we do.
The History Channel is constantly running the ancient astronaut theme.
Right. So people love to say that we're too idiotic.
I've seen how they marked off the ground with that wheel thing that goes around, and they know how many cubits over.
No, okay. So I'm not arguing with you. What I'm saying is I think the mishigas of space aliens coming down and we're really space aliens on this planet. Blah, blah, blah. I think it's all foolishness.
1,200 Hebrew slaves. Aliens.
There you go. Okay, but more than 1,200. But okay, we had millions there.
12,000.
We had millions. We had 12 million people there. We had expanded. Okay, but nonetheless,
That's 4 million per pyramid.
they owe us reparations. Since we're talking about reparations, so let's get the Egyptians
I
right.
wanted to make a point. You
Yeah.
gave two examples. You said the eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That requires an interpretation. That requires the
Old tradition.
Then the other example you gave was simply the light. Let there be light. Well, that doesn't require.
It does though. It does because that requires more interpretation than eye for an eye and tooth for
But
tooth.
the first one involves a punitive thing.
Right.
How you interpret law to enforce it. We're not enforcing a law with let there be
No,
light.
but the point I'm making is that the verses, when it says the verses don't go out of their simple understanding, it means may it be a punitive, may it be mishpat, may it be chukot, may it be the storyline, whatever it's going to be, it never can leave shot. It never can leave the simple understanding. As a matter of fact, that is why if you look in the Chumash, Rashi is in every Chumash. The commentator Rashi is in every Chumash. Why? Because he said in his time period, people loved to go outside of Pshat, and they wanted to give drushes. They only wanted the midrash. So, for example, it says that the daughter of Pharaoh sent out her hand to get the baby. Amata sent out her hand to get the baby. Now, that which would mean that her hand, and it says her hand grew, stretched out 10 feet to grab the baby, to pull the baby in. Okay? So every child coming home from day school knows that story. They don't realize that amata could just mean her handmaiden. Which is a simple explanation. She sent her handmaiden, go get the baby, bring it in. So now you have to ask, why does the Midrash say that her hand stretched out like a stretchy guy? Stretch Armstrong.
But we've seen that with an outstretched hand.
No, but I'm saying everybody knows that, and they teach that she stretched her hand out, the drasha versus pshat, which she sent to her handmaiden. So now Rashi, let me just finish. So Rashi said, no, people have to know that there's a simple explanation. Yes, the drasha is true. He's not arguing on the veracity of the drasha. He's not arguing on that. He's saying that, but there's pshat. First, let's do the pshat, and then when we get into the drasha, now we have to understand why the rabbis used that, why they taught us that. What was the use of that? Maybe her arm really did stretch out. He's not arguing that. He could have. I'm not saying no, but why would we need to know that? Why is that important to the story? In other words, when we're looking at any story in the world, the question is, why did the reporter tell us that particular piece of information? What was she, it, trying to you know what it is anymore. It's trying to get across.
Commercials on TV, wondering what it is they're selling.
Exactly.
What are they selling?
Right. So now that's the whole thing. If you don't know what they're selling, you have to drush it out. Okay. But the point is that I want to know why you gave me that point of information. So now I can make a drasha on it. But the simple explanation is she sent her handmaiden. That's simple. No question about it. Okay? And so now the question is, why? And that's why here, so Rashi is saying, by the way, Rashi brings down that midrash. After he gives the simple explanation, he brings down the midrash. Because I guess he wants everybody to know there's a midrash out there too. But he identifies as a midrash. And sometimes he'll say, the midrash is the only pshat that's there.
What is in that case, what is the actual verse? She sent her hand out, or she sent her handmaiden out? What is the actual?
Amata.
Yeah, is that a noun or is that a verb? Is that a noun or a verb? Because that would
I would have to look at the verse. I don't remember. I remember the word more than the verse. She sent her amata. So it would be Amma, and the reason I say, by the way, that it's stretched because it says Amma. She sent her Amma. So it wants to indicate that she sent forward. By the way, the simpler way to understand the midrash is when she sent her hand forth, it means she gave the baby protection. She sent her protection.
Can you do one favor, please? Can you define, what do you mean by midrash?
Again, midrash is the homiletic interpretation of the verse, which is, there's two types. We're learning one. Actually, this is what the whole course is about. One type is midrash agada, which the storyline, and one part is midrash halacha, where I learn how the halacha comes.
Midrash is a narrative.
Yeah, basically, it's a report. And so now the midrash, the problem with the midrash is, if you can call it that, is sometimes, again, this is that, if you would go, I didn't record it back at the very beginning, but if you could have been here for the very first class, actually, I don't think anybody except for Bill. You were here for the first class? No. You weren't here yet? I think Bill's the only one.
Word hasn't spread yet.
There you go. But what we discussed was the 6 different levels of midrashim. And why did sometimes the rabbis put it into storyline so that we would know, we would understand the code. We would understand the code. Because they didn't want their enemies to understand. Because you had the Russians, you had the Romans. Yeah, the Romans were trying to kill us. So they would put it into childlike language. Everybody would know what's going on. I'll give you an example. I was just watching while I was exercising, I like to watch some shows. So one of the shows I was watching, what's it called? Legends of Tomorrow. Okay, so they were people. It's the same garbage that's going all over the place. That they're trying to get us not to hate somebody because they're different than us, but they put it into some alien and magical creatures, blah blah blah, and it's that sort of thing. And they're trying to do it. Now, as I'm watching this and I'm hearing the speech, we have to love each other, we have to get along with each other. I was thinking, political, stop your ears. It's the same garbage. I could watch Supergirl for this. I could watch anything I want. It comes down to politics.
You could read Aesop's fables for the same thing.
Yes.
It's satire.
Yes. Well, satire, and also they want to get their message across. And by satire, they get their message across.
If you make human stories into animals,
correct.
Then it's fun.
So now, right, so that's Animal Farm, George Orwell. That's what he did. And so all these guys are making midrashim, in quotes, okay, midrashim, so that the enemy doesn't get it. They just think it's a story. So that was one level of midrash, where the rabbis did that. They put the story into words that only we, if we think about it, would get. If we don't think about it, we lose it. Then it's just like, that's a kid's story.
In other words, then it would sound like silliness, basically.
Right, that is silly. Sorry, what are you telling me? Okay, so that was one level. But like I said, the other level is where they're really giving you the background. There was missing parts of the story. In other words, you look at the Holocaust. So you can read a book by Rolf Hillsberg, something like that. Very thick book about the Holocaust, fact, fine. And you get the whole rigmarole but overview of the Holocaust, and the Germans, what they were doing, and Hitler and so on and so forth. Or you can read a book called something about a flower. I forget, sunflower. I think that was one of the names of the thing. There's another one, Survival in Auschwitz. You can read those books by Primo Levi, Levi. I don't know how they. It's really Levi, so I don't know how they would say it. Also, the other guy, the other one, the Holocaust person, Elie Wiesel. You read those books, and you get a whole different drasha going on, where they're telling you called night and dawn and night. Different times of the day, but it's or you read Chaim Potok. Well, he didn't do Holocaust, but you read those books, and they give you the inside, the meat and potatoes of what was going on in the camps, which the history books aren't going to give you. So the history book, if you will, would be called the Torah. And then these books would be called the Midrash, giving you the inside story. So that's another part of Midrash. So the Midrash are 100% true. 100% true.
There's 6 or 7 levels?
Again, there's 6 or 7 reasons for how the Midrash works. It's actually in the beginning of that book.
This one?
This one. So in the introduction of that book. It was written by Rambam, Maimonides' son, and he says you can't believe every midrash. If you do, you're a fool because it's contradictory. And at the same time, you can't say anyone's false.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Okay, because they're all right, they're all true in what they were trying to do, but you can't take it.
And were written for different audiences at different times
Correct.
for different reasons.
Correct. And you have to identify that. And once you identify that, now you know where to put it, and we can move with that.
I asked you what a midrash is only to distinguish it from a haftorah, which has a similar message but a totally different source. This midrash is meant specifically to explain and expound, not give a second story that means the same thing.
Yes, but also the difference is the haftorah, which comes from Nevi'im or Ketuvim, is part of Tanakh. It's part of the Torah. It's part of the Bible. So the reason that we have a haftorah today is because the non-Jews wanted to kill us reading Torah. So what the rabbis did was they had to live by that decree. So they found different parts of Tanakh that would mirror what was going on in the Torah portion. And that way people would remember the Torah portion. Now, when the decree was lifted, we still kept it there because we never take anything away once you put it in. And so that's why we have the Torah and the Haftorah. And when they were asked, why not just go back to the Torah, they said because the non-Jews may put another decree on us. So that's why we never take anything away, because we're always worried what's going to happen if. So we expanded our service from 10 minutes to 3 hours, because then you have to have the rabbi speaking and so on and so forth. Okay. But really, that would be so Midrash is, again, explanation of what's going on. Could be said in a satirical manner, which it was many times said in a satirical manner. It could be said in a serious manner. It could be a true story. It could be one of the insights of the story that we wouldn't otherwise see, but that the story is giving hint to. Okay, and the story of the Song of the Sea. God uses 3 different types of sinkings. The Egyptians went down as straw, lead, and stone. Yeah. So each one of those has a different meaning. Who was going down the straw, who was, and so on and so forth. But again, if I'm not looking closely at those things, I just sing the song, like we do with most songs. We just sing the song. But there's something there. The straw were the wicked people. The lead was the righteous, and the stones were not as righteous.
What's the Passover song?
Diana.
Well, there's several, the one at the end where...
Chad Gadya.
Yeah, and when this one who ate this one,
right.
This
Right.
One
That was.
That means something entirely different than what it says.
Yeah. It's a very midrashic song. You can take it at a simple level. It becomes a kid's song.
Yeah, that's right.
And then what you're really learning that is one thing will lead to the other, and you can't really solve problems by bringing just that. But there's a lot of midrash into that. Yeah, there are. So all these songs, again, we sing them as it's the end of the Seder. So we just sing them because we want our kids to get them. But they're all very strong stories.
We've had 4 cups of wine already.
You're right. You're very, very strong. All very strong stories. Okay.
When we talk about shot, that you can't totally discard it.
You never can discard pshat.
So what we're saying, like in the eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, that there's always a kernel, an element of absolute truth in that. And so when we take drash to try to understand it, you still got to remember the kernel of truth. In other words,
You have to remember the pshat.
yeah.
You always have to remember pshat. Pshat is the key. God wrote it down. He meant to write it down for a reason.
Because again, in the non-Jewish world, I think both the Christian church for a long time and then Islam to this very day, they take that shot and they stick with it. They don't want to vary at all from it.
Okay, so that's only when it works.
That's what?
That's only when it works out for them. You understand what I said? They only stick to pshat when it works out for them. If it doesn't work out for them, they suddenly learn the world of midrash.
The Peshat is the simple form.
Simple understanding. Simple understanding.
I once worked for at a company founded. The owner-founder was still there. He used to have this motto sometimes in business. It had nothing to do with anything
Right.
else. And he used to say, ready, fire, aim. Not the other way around, like we've heard it, but ready, fire, aim. And these people are saying the same thing. That you take a wider approach and then you hone in on something to get it right, to get at the deep, what you're really trying to do. Maybe that's a simple comparison, but it's been done before.
Well, see, the problem, what I want to take out from that is, it's not ready, fire, aim. It's, we knew from the beginning what was going on. And when God gave us a Torah, He didn't say, here's a gift, I'm not going to tell you what it means. I'm giving you, and you come on your own decisions. Yeah. No, He said, this is what it is, this is what it means. He told Moshe what it is, and Moshe would pass it on for generation after generation after generation after generation. And it was all oral. Everything was oral. Now what happens is, we go into diaspora, and we're no longer together. We no longer have the teachers. The rabbis realize we better write this down, even though it says you shouldn't write it down. But if we don't write it down, we're going to forget. People are not going to have it. It's going to ruin everything. And all we'll have left is the written Torah, and you can't live by the written Torah. It's impossible. It's totally impossible. Why? The famous thing, it says, if you break Shabbat, you will die. But it never tells you how to keep Shabbat. So either God is the ultimate cruel person or cruel being, that He creates us such stuff a disaster, and then says, well, you should have kept Shabbos. Well, what does that mean? You mean you didn't know? Well, the best thing was when I went into a job, I said to the person, so what are your expectations? I don't know. So what do you mean you don't know? How do I know if I'm doing well? Good question. So what's the answer? I don't know.
What city was this in?
I'm not going to tell you. I'm online. 99 countries are seeing me at this point. 99 countries are seeing me. It may be into 100 companies now. But it was the craziest thing in the world. So now you're going to say the same thing about God. God gives us a Torah and says, okay, put these words on your arm. What words? These words. Which ones?
All right, so
those ones.
By the time the 10 Commandments came,
yeah,
which include remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, were the rules already given as to how to do that?
Yeah.
They were.
They were simultaneously. When God gave us a rule, He explained to Moshe what it was. Moshe would explain to everybody else.
At the same time.
At the same time. There was never a question. What happened is as we go away from each other, generation after generation after generation, and now we're in different countries, so it was written down. And more than that, again, there was no internet, there's nothing going on, so we have to discuss it amongst ourselves and remember what's going on. We're passing all this on. We're writing down notes like crazy. And by the way, it's not everybody's notes got accepted. That's why you have Brightot. That's why you have all these outside sources, Tosefta. Not everything's accepted. It took people to verify everything. We had fact checkers. and by the way, the election's not the first fact checkers in the world. The rabbis are the first fact checkers. They were fact checking all the way around. Did he really say this? He couldn't have said that. How could he say that? He holds this. And so on. So I mean, it's all throughout the Gemara. It's impossible that he would say that. And then they say, well, he retracted. He didn't retract either. And they actually, the guy's dead. They're arguing it out back and forth, and then they finally come, we have this tradition, so we have two traditions. We're not sure which is right at this point, so we'll put both of them in. That's what they said. It happens very few times, but it does happen. Where one person was here, you all came to my class, and you heard what I said. You had one perception, you had another one perception. He went to sleep and he wasn't gone. So all I have is you two, and now the tradition goes on. And now you say what you heard. You say by the way, it happened with me.
When you fell asleep?
No. My Rebbe said something about a kashrut. I remember this. And I always remembered it. So years later, I would go into another community, Sharon, Massachusetts, and so I would go into somebody's house. I was single at that point, so I went to somebody else, and they were doing something. And I said, it's interesting. My Rebbe always said blank. So fine. So he didn't know anything to argue with me. But he went to the rabbi. He said to the rabbi, that Rabbi Nebel said this. So the rabbi, very, very sweet guy, Rabbi Sander, very sweet guy, didn't call me up, didn't berate me, didn't do anything. I happened to, because I was going to meet him, so I said, Rabbi, can I give you a lift home? He said, yeah, great. While I'm driving into his house, he said, I have a question for you. Very sweet. I have a question. You said this to blank. I said, yeah. He said, I don't remember learning it that way. Not you're wrong. I don't remember learning it. And we both had the same Rebbe, years apart. And so he said to me, why do you think that? So I happened, because I was in the business, I happened to put, my book was in my backseat anyway. So I said, wait a second. Pulled it out. He said, wow, that's a good mashgiach. I showed him my source, and I read it. He said, you could read it like that, or the way I remember reading it was like this. Same words, put the comma in a different place. And because there's no commas in the book, there's no grammar, there's no punctuation marks, I heard that, I said, I hear what you're saying. But I remember him saying that. He said, and I remember him saying that. You should really give him a call. I said, you know what? You're right. It would take me another 10 years to actually call the rabbi and ask him. And he said, why would I have said that? So I said, well, I seem to remember you did that. He thought he was already in the 90s, and he's still teaching.
Yeah.
Now he is nifter.
Is he still alive?
No, now he's nifter. And now he's dead. But he was still teaching. And he said, if I said it was theoretical, no, you don't rule like that. And so he backed off. So once he backed off, I don't have anything to stand on. So then I would default to how Rabbi Sender learned it.
Wow.
But it was interesting that we both, again, same rabbi, never changed his methodology of teaching. That I can tell you.
Were you giving up the feeling that your own thought was valid simply because you couldn't base it on some external source?
No, because he said it. Either he said it or he didn't.
But did you believe it? Was it fit in your way of thinking, in other words?
Did it what? Did it fit into my way of thinking?
If you lose your source for believing something, do you have to give up that belief?
That's a false belief. If he's saying I did not say,
false?
Because he said I did not say that. If he didn't say it, I'm quoting him.
Right.
I'm quoting him.
Yeah.
So if he said I didn't say that, if I did, I was mistaken, then it's over. I don't have any right to. I'm going to misquote a person who's backed off from the situation. I could always say he retracted. I don't know, but he learned something else. But it was my misunderstanding of the text, of what he said about the text. That's all. So again, that's the honesty of the system. If I can go back and ask the person what they said, either they said yes or no to that, and that's the end of it. They could always tell me they backed off. That's something else. So, I heard it right, but you backed off. Okay, retracted. But he said he doesn't believe he said it.
Wow.
So okay. And then he died. Years later. He wasn't.
He wasn't on internet. If he had been on internet, we could look it up.
Oh, that's that. Then you could listen to what he said, right? Right. But I'm just saying. But that is the power of the tradition, and that's why the oral tradition. The power is if I cannot ask that person, and I know him for a good memory, and I can read it that way. Well, you can read it the other way too. Who cares? But it's open to interpretation at that point. So now we have two schools of thought about what the same Rebbe said. And that would be a valid game. But once the Rebbe says, no, I didn't say that, game over. You are mistaken. And that's what we call, by the way, in Gemara terms, tiyufta, refutation. It's a refutation. So once you're wrong, it's okay.
Oh, where somebody else came forward and said, I actually asked him, and he
said no. It's tiyufta. It's tiyufta. You showed that you're wrong. So the person doesn't stand on ceremony. Because why are we doing this? We're only doing it to serve God. So I want to serve God properly, not because it's my way. It's not my way or the highway. It's the Torah's, is God's way or the highway. So I have to know what God wants. That's what we deal with. Okay.
We see that when we study the halakha.
Right.
That it's l'shem shamayim, not to win an argument, but to get closer to God.
Correct. That's why it says any argument that is for the sake of God will last forever. Any argument that is for the sake for your own ego is doomed to die.
Like on Wednesdays when we come to the lunch and learns,
right,
how different it is from listening to the arguments of politicians and they're out shouting each other,
right,
and they're trying to damage each other's reputation, and it's not for truth. It's
correct,
to win the debate,
correct,
at any cost.
And we're not interested in that. We want to know how to serve Hashem. That's what happens. Okay, so so now we'll just start the next section. We're not going to finish it by any stretch of imagination. It says a mnemonic zaro. So it says Alma, which is interesting. It says in 24 that the Gemara. Did I skip something here? No. So it says the Gemara will now present a series of dicta on the topic of Torah study. Many of them reported by Rabbi Yirmiyah and Rabbi Abba in the name of Rabbi Elazar or Reish Lakish. The mnemonic Zarot is actually an acronym that suggests the four aforementioned Emarayim. So Rav is Elazar is the Zion, Reish is Reish Lakish, the Tov, V'Talmideim, their students, and the first two letters. Okay, fine. Let's go on. So it says, Am a Rabbi Yirmiyah, Am a Rabbi Elazar, Shnei Talmidei Chachamim, Mechadrim Zev Halacha, when two scholars, Torah scholars, sharpen each other in the law, which means they pose challenging questions and respond to one another, not in order to overpower the other, like we're just saying, but to become sharper in the understanding of the law. We're not debating just to debate. We want to know what's going on there. So it says, when you do that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Mashliach Lehem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu grants them success. Shneimar, as it says, V'yadarcha tzlach, and with your splendor succeed. Al tikrei v'yadarcha ela b'chadedecha. So now the famous thing is, read not the word as it really is, splendor, but read it as your sharpening. So it says the word hadarcha appears superfluous since it is mentioned at the end of the previous verse. For that reason, the rabbis expounded the letters Reish and Dalet may be interchanged since they have the similar shape. Similarly, the letters Hey and Chet may be interchanged. So there's a device there in rabbinics that you can do that with. Below Od El Sha'olin L'Gedula. And not only that Hashem grants them success, but they also rise in greatness to powers of position of power and influence. Shnei Shalach Rechav, as it says, succeed, ride on the roll steeds. Which and then is Yachol Afilu Shlo Lishma. One might think that success and greatness are bestowed even if they are studying for ulterior motives. Talmud, actually, you're just going at it, right? Talmud Loma al Devar Emet. To dispel this notion, the Torah states in the same verse, for the sake of truth. Yechol im he gis dato. One might also think that these blessings come to even want to, if the scholar is arrogant, tamalomar v'anavat tzedek. To dispel this notion, the Torah states in the same verse, and righteous humility. V'im osin kain zochen the Torah v'yamin. And if they do this, if they study humbly and altruistically, they will merit to achieve the Torah, which was given with the right hand. Shneamar, as it says, Toracha noraot minecha. That and your right hand will teach you awesome things. So it says the word Torah suggests that rendering of halachic decisions. That is, each of these scholars will merit to become a sage capable of rendering halachic decisions for the public. The Torah is given with the right hand, quote unquote right hand, as it says, "Mimino eish dato lamo," his right hand, from his right hand, a fiery law for them. So again, what we're learning from this, and we'll stop with this, is that if the two people are having a discussion, a debate, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, and only to find out how to serve God better, God will make them successful, and they will earn the right to render judgment in Jewish law. If they do it for any other reason, it does not apply. None of these things apply. And why would they get to render Jewish law if they do it l'shem shamayim? Because they're coming from a position of humility. I don't have to be right. It's not me. It's not my ego. My ego is pushed aside. I just want to know what to do. So now when people come to you and ask you a question, it's no longer, you don't feel, I'm so great, they're coming to me. The country sounds so wonderful. No, you're realizing that I'm a vessel for God, and God has given me the ability to do these, to render judgment. So I'm representing, if you will, God. So if I mess up, I'm creating a profanation of God's name. Nobody wants that. That's humility. Unlike today when you have judges who rule just for the media and to make their names in the media, it's not l'shem shamayim. They're doing it because they want to be in the news. That's all. This judge overturned this position. Who cares? It means nothing. Be overturned some other day by somebody else. Your words are worthless to us. But unlike the rabbis, and we're discussing this, I was discussing it in entertainment yesterday, that you have classes of rabbis. In other words, you have the Gemara, you have the Mishnaic rabbis, so you have the Tanaim. And then you have the Amoraim, Sabarayim, Gaonim, Rishonim, Acharonim. That's the different errors that we have. An Amora can never argue with a Tana. It's an impossibility. Whatever the Tana said, they're dead. Whatever the Tana said is sacrosanct. Then the Amora, so the Amora can't argue. They have to just explain. Now the Amora, there was a whole period. I mean, we have hundreds of years for each one. The Amora, anybody who's an Amora, cannot be argued on by a Gaon, which is the next class. And then the Gaon, whatever they said, cannot be argued on by the next, and so on and so forth. So we hold those opinions to be 100% true, valid. We can't throw them away. Unlike today, in American jurisprudence, somebody said something, Michigan, we throw you away. We ignore you. You're not part of the Masorah. You're not part of the translation. We don't care about you. It's the most amazing thing. The precedents that you can't argue. You can only you seek to understand. There would never be a discussion like we're having today, should we uproot the current Constitution? Couldn't do that. It's like a ridiculous thing. You're uprooting the very foundation of what you built yourself on. And that's what people are arguing today. Sure, is the Constitution, is it really, who was it made by, what they do, they didn't, it's not worthwhile anymore. It's such a ridiculous argument. It's like saying, okay, God didn't know what he's writing in the Torah, so let's uproot the Torah. You can't do that. You have a foundation here. So that's why the rabbis are saying there was no arrogance when they were ruling. There was humility. They were righteous with that. And that's why it says that they'll merit to do all of this. And that's where we'll have to stop.